Okay, so starting another build today. I'm going to do a table, and this is probably the easiest way I can think of to do this. Starting off with a butcher block countertop. This was 170 bucks from Home Depot. It's 74 by 25 by 1.5, although I got to unpackage it and get an actual measurement. I'd question whether it's a true 1.5 thick and it's probably more like 25.5 wide. I'm only going to make it 6 feet long, but that gives me room to trim the ends when I get my hardwood added. So yeah, first step is to unpackage this thing, get it all measured. I'm going to put some hardwood in it. I've got a nice piece of purple heart here. I'll probably do 2 strips of that, maybe 3. Some walnut, at least 2 strips of that. And then I've got a couple of really nice boards of cherry that I'll put in there as well. Cherry was on sale, so I got quite a bit of it. In the end, I want it about 34 inches wide. But the first thing I need to do is get it on the table saw and rip it into probably 3 strips after I get it apart, measure it and everything. Okay, so I'm a little shocked. This is exactly 25 inches. And it is exactly 1.5 inches. I'm very, very surprised. But that makes cutting my strips a lot easier. So first thing I gotta do is rip this into 3. Okay, so that was a really rough cut for a table saw. This thing is really powerful, and they'd had a tough time with this butcher block, which I'm not surprised. But it did get it, and it did get a nice edge on it. There's a couple little areas I got to clean up, but nothing major. But I got the first strip off. You can see my garage is full of smoke. It was definitely overworking it a little. So I just got to rip this side down one more time. The reason I'm doing this in 3 pieces is because my planer can't take a very wide piece, but I can take this and put like a piece on each end and then run it through the planer, and I can do that with all 3 of them and make it, 6, 8 inches wider if need be. So I got one more cut to do, then I'll give my table saw a break for a little while, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're ripped into 3 pieces. Got these 2 that I just did. This cut went a lot easier than the first one, probably because the board's so much lighter. And I got this one over here. Hindsight, and if I were to do this again, I'd probably lay some 2x4 on the ground and just use a straight edge in my circular saw. But didn't really think of that until just now. All right, so got the first 2 strips of cherry cut. Depths are really good. I don't know how well it's going to glue up, but notice it's a little warped and twisted, but that could be this butcher block too. But I think once I get it all glued into place, it's going to be about the same, and I can still run it through the planer after, but I do need to clean up these edges to get them to glue correctly. All right, welcome back. It is the next day. So I stayed out last night fairly late, cutting all that hardwood into strips. So you get some cherry, some purple heart. There are some burn marks that should stand out. More cherry and some walnuts. And again, I got same thing over here, another piece of cherry. And I already have my butcher block into 3 pieces. So yeah, but what I'm gonna do, because these aren't the smoothest either, so I'm going to actually do my glue up on the factory edge on these. I just have to clean these off and glue them up. I've got my clamps laid out pretty much everywhere, the whole length of the table. This is going to be the first side. I'm gluing on the factory edge because it's a lot smoother with less burn marks from my table saw than this one. And I'll go through and hit this with a belt and palm sander after to kind of take these out. I don't know if you can see it or not. And this edge is actually going to get cut off, but there's a chip out of the corner there. All right, so I've got some glue on here. I just use a foam brush, and I pretty much start at the edge, and I get a good glue bead going and just roll it right across. Yes, I know I use way more than needed, but the thing with glue is I would rather use too much than not enough, because the excess is just going to squeeze out, and if there's not enough, you're starting over. And you know, for the $7 that the wood glue costs, I'll save myself a few hours of work. All right, so got it glued and clamped. It's not as flat as I'd like it, mostly on this end. The board that I was worried about lifting did a little, and that's that Purple Heart. Well, it's the next morning. Got to pull the clamps off. Looks like all the glue's dry. I was really hoping to get away with not running this through the plant, but that Purple Heart is quite a bit higher than the other ones. I could possibly sand it out, but I don't know. I'm going to get the other one glued up and assess it, but I'll probably have to run all 3 pieces through, probably 2 passes each side, just to get it smooth enough. So yeah, I'll get this unclamped, get the other one up here, get that one clamped up. Okay, it's the next day. It's been drying for about 21, 22 hours. It's all good and hard, so I'll probably start taking these clamps off. I couldn't find any C-channel at the store this morning. I've already been out and about. So what I'm thinking, and I don't even know if it's gonna work or be strong enough, but I have this piece of African paddock that I could cut to about 26 inches and then rip it in half. And I could do 2 cross supports in the middle, and then the legs are going to be cross supports too. They're going to be about 11 or 12 inches in on each end. And just to see if that does anything. Or I could even just do one right in the complete center, and then, you know, the legs being a foot in would really give me some, at least, you know, a little bit of rigidity going across. It did bow slightly, even though I clamped it down to try to prevent that on the back end. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little tiny gap over there and over here, bowed up in the middle, where this end is just completely flush. You know, wood does that. But I don't think it's enough. I don't think a marble or anything would even roll off of it, anything like that. So I'll get it unclamped. I brought the belt sander out. I absolutely hate using a belt sander. I'm gonna have to change the pad on it. It's got like a 60 grit on it now. I picked up a 120. Just the belt sander takes off so much material. I don't like using anything rough on it. And I brought a bunch of batteries for the orbital. Gonna have a field day with that thing today. This is gonna be a long process. And that's a lot of time wearing a mask. It's pouring rain out, but I'm still gonna try to move as much out of the garage as I can, just because there's gonna be a lot of dust. So, all right, I'll get to unclamping it and go from there. So just one more thing. This is why I just put the masking tape over where the glue joints are gonna be. Because of that. You can just pop it right off. The last thing you want is to glue a 2x4 to a tabletop. This one, same thing. I already broke this one free, but popped right off. And now you just peel the masking tape off and you can reuse the piece of 2x4. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take the router. I already picked a bit. I may not stick with this one. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's just a little round over bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and run the first line, see what it looks like. I may go a little more than that, but we'll see. All right, so just went around it. You can see one imperfection here. A lot of that's the way it glued up. There's like a low spot in the table. Other than that, though, it went around it very smooth. Really nice edges on it. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I got to do the bottom too, and I don't know if I'll round over the corners or not. It probably would be a good idea just not to leave them sharp, but it came out really good. A little burning back here, shockingly. But yeah, no, it worked. Worked quite well. All right, so that's done. Went around it top and bottom. The bottom actually came out better than the top, unfortunately, but now I just have to go around with sandpaper, clean up these edges. Hopefully let these batteries charge. I've got one fully charged right now. And yeah, once those are all fully charged, I can step it up to 80, 120, and 220 up here. And hopefully this thing will be done being sanded today. And I can worry about finishing it throughout the week. I think I'm probably going to have to go with a polyurethane just because this purple heart has some imperfections in it and the poly will fill it. So that's probably the route I'm going to have to go. But yeah, I'm going to get back to sanding. All right, we're back. It's another day. I hit some of the rough spots with some glue. I'm sure you can see that. It's just regular old super glue. Nothing fancy. It does make a difference, but you can still see where they were. I don't know if it's really going to come through on here, but like that one, once I sand it off, you'll still be able to see that in the middle. I did a couple spots yesterday as a test, and see where it's just a little darker right there? That was a spot I filled with super glue too. And then, you know, I filled some of the little pits in the butcher block too. So I'm gonna go ahead, throw a mask on. I'm gonna go over 220 the whole thing, get all these out. Then I actually need to flip it over and do 180 on the bottom side. And that's probably where I'll stop on that. And then I'm gonna do a water pop on this thing just to raise the grain. And then, yeah, I'll hit it with 320 and I'll pick up some finish probably tomorrow. Made an offer on a set of legs I found online today. Haven't bought anything off eBay in a while, and I saw some on there that would work pretty well, so we'll see if that goes through. And if not, I mean, hey, whatever, I can always just buy a set, not a big deal. I'm only gonna do 2 legs, and I actually set these about where I want them, about 12 inches in, which will give ample room for people. Could potentially squeeze 6 at this if I really wanted to. Yeah, but I'm gonna put a mask on, put some fresh paper on, and get this thing sanded. So just a quick update, just sanded it all off with the 220. It was actually 240, I thought it was 220, but you can still see a few little areas. There's one there. There's a couple down here, but at least they're smooth to the touch. That one's the worst. My hands are in the way here, but get it from over here. But yeah, that's the worst one. But it's completely smooth, so when I do put a finish over it, it should look pretty good, even though it'll be a little miscolored. But you know, you get a little ways back, you don't even notice. So I've got to just hand sand these edges with the 240, flip it over, do the bottom with the 180, and then yeah, then give it a water pop, and that'll be it for the night. All right, so I got it all sanded to 240. So now we're on to one of the, in my opinion, most important steps. You have to raise the grain. Now the reason you do this is so when you put your finish on, it doesn't feel rough afterwards, because the moisture soaks down into the wood and the grain fibers tend to stand up. So I'm gonna put you in the tripod for this one. It's very easy. All you really do is just dump your bottle of water pretty liberally across the table. Get it good and wet. And then just spread it with some paper towels. Make sure it gets good and soaked. You don't want like pools or anything building up on it, but you want to make sure every area of it gets, you know, wet. But you can tell just from looking at this, it's already a rough surface again. All right, so we're back. I know it's been a little bit, not that you guys will know that on the video world, but I've been sanding this thing pretty constantly for a couple of days now. There's still a couple areas that aren't perfect. I can still kind of feel that right there a little bit. But I got it all the way to 320 on the top side, which is this one, and 240 on the bottom. I was gonna stop at 180, but I figured why not smooth it out a little bit. The bottom has a lot of imperfections in it. So now we just have to clean it. I'm gonna probably do a little better than needed cleaning it. I picked up a couple things. I'm gonna use some rags and paint thinner. This is just mineral spirits. Mineral spirit paint thinner to clean it. And then after that, I've got some tack cloths I'm gonna go over it with. All right, so I've got my plastic down, tabletop's up on it. This is the bottom side. I did wipe both ends down with mineral spirit on some cloth. Gave it a nice color, actually. It's definitely soaking in, but I gotta let it dry before I put the first coat of varnish on it, which I did pick up. I decided to go with the water locks. I want to get the first coat on tonight, and I want to get that on the bottom side, because the bottom's only going to get 2 and the top's going to get about 5. But just cleaning it with mineral spirit, it does look a lot better. All the edges are done and everything, and all I used was just some Scott towels, nothing really special. And this is just painter's plastic, just to keep the dust from the table, from my bench here, getting on the table, I should say. So yeah, I just got to let this dry, and then I'll put my first coat on. All right, so I just went over it with a tack cloth. And this is why you always go over it with a tack cloth. Even after cleaning it with mineral spirit, I still got more off it. See, the other side that was on my hand is squeaky clean. This side is not. So yeah, even after wiping it down with mineral spirit, still got more dust off it. That would have been trapped in the finish. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour some of this out. I'm just pouring it into a little plastic container, and then I'm actually going to rub it on with one of those wipes, the same ones I used to wipe the mineral spirit on. I am going to wear a glove. But yeah, I'll get all that ready. I'll try to set the GoPro up somewhere where you can see it happening. So I'll be right back. All right. So you guys can see down the entire table here. So I'm just using a couple of those rags. Get them nice and wet, like really wet. This first coat, you really want to use a ton. This is just kind of like wetted on coat. Go with the grain of the wood, all the way down, all the way back, and then do it again. All right, welcome back. Legs are on. They showed up today, so I just screwed them on when I got out of work. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really just 6 wood screws to mount it. Kind of a trapezoid shape. I wanted to go open, so sitting at the end, you wouldn't be hitting your legs on it. I mounted them 12 inches in from each edge. I'm about to put my last coat of water locks on this. I know you're looking at it probably saying it doesn't even need another one. This is after 6. I just sanded this with 800 grit, and went over it with a tack cloth. The coat before this I sanded with 600 grit and went over it with a tack cloth, and that's when it really started to gleam. So I'm just going to do one more. I'm going to let that dry a full 2 days. I'm going to sand that one with probably either 1,000 or 1,500 grit, and then I might even polish it. I haven't decided yet. I do like how this is a semi-gloss finish over a full gloss. So I mean, you see some light in it, but it's not blinding you or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and pour some water locks in a new container, this one here. I've been using a new container every coat. Spread that on and be done for the night, and hopefully this will be in my kitchen in 2 days. I'll get back to you. Well, there it is. Last coat is on. That one went on with just a foam brush. I know they say to wipe it on with a rag, but I found a foam brush gets it a lot more even. So yeah, I kind of stuck with that. I can actually see a few areas I got to touch up as I go down. After sanding, just a few areas on the sides that didn't really get a fresh little coat. So, but yeah, it overall came out quite nice. The top is incredibly shiny. It'll flatten as it dries, but I think we're gonna be okay. Going in the kitchen in about 2 days, assuming the smell wears off. So yeah, and I may have to do some touching up, which I'm not worried about. It's very easy. This product is really easy to use too. If you're on any type of like a time constraint or anything, I wouldn't recommend it. It's 24 hours between coats, and it was 4 coats before it even started to not penetrate the wood anymore and leave a finish on it. So yeah, if you're on any type of time constraint, it's not the best one. You know, hindsight, I probably should have used the polyurethane, but I'm quite happy with this. I think it looks pretty great. I can pretty clearly see all the reflections in it and everything. Granted, it's still wet right now. It will flatten out a little, but I think this is kind of a win. And it'll look good in my kitchen. Eventually, I'm going to build a bench for one side. Obviously the 2 chairs at the end and probably a 3rd chair on the back side. So yeah, we'll save that for another video though. Take care. All right, just brought it inside. Got a few chairs around it. These are temporary. But yeah, in its new home, plenty of room for your feet and legs and everything underneath. Just a good around view.